First Knotsman. Thy mothy has taken for a witcher, and trust into the borough jail. And thee must hide thy hid as well, else snagged be by foul stitcher. He took him sen to Hollow Hill, his grandam's secret bury place, and there he hid his sorrowed face and tore his tatty shirt, until a kindly hand of knotted lace was felt upon his shoulder drawn, more soft and light of summer morn, him minded to his mother's race. He tacked the scattered ribbons torn and hied him to the miller's pool, and saw him set the ducking stool upon the green and sodden lawn. He spent the night in shadows cool, a conning of the binding ropes, the shanks and hitches, strangled loops, and heard again his granny's rule of like for like. So bounden hopes began to loosen. When his mam was dunking off under, off she swam. But ta'en again, in metal hoops they bound her tightly, brought her home, her proven guilt must judgment have. The magistrate her soul to save said she must ride to Neckingham. Scratching at a hangman's grave, beneath the crossroads' earthy grip, he took the swollen knotted slip that Ghast had from the body clave. With Granny's words upon his lip, he worked the coiled murder loose, and saw the executioner's noose offer up no fellowship. The magistrate had naught to choose, but bear her straight into the fire, and that became her funeral pyre. Tugs and pickers had no use, the threads of flame are weaving higher, for the blaze was dampened down his wide brim hat upon his crown. He went a wandering untire. He roamed the countryside around, loosing all the troubled ropes and knotted cares, a kindling hopes. Is how thy knotsman came to town. The undoer of knots. The priest is loosing knots within the church on Sunday morn. Says loosing is the Saviour's work, the reason he was born. Reciting all the miracles he'd done through his sojourn, and we all be free on his returning. He didn't like the crow they called the knotsman coming by to the houses of the parish, with that cunning in his eye, saying, "Give me up your strings and I'll unknot them by and by. 'Tis not a mickle fee I be earning." Him's unhappy of a magic that was older than his own, so he's got his bishop's blessing and his candle, bell and gown, and he's got a mat of tatters with the ribbons hanging down in the pulpit full of glee and his learning. And he's plucking at a gibber, and he's pulling off a fly, and he's thumbing at a fanny with a twinkle in his eye, and he's whipping out the tangles of the trouble merrily, full of all his scholarly discerning. The squire and his family were sitting in their pews, the congregation all around to listen to the news. Well, he wasn't very happy when the squire lost his trews, had 'em falling to his knees on his turning, and his mistress had a shock when all her corselage it burst, had a flopping on an altar boy, that must have been a first, had 'em leaping for the vestry, and in their hands they pursed such fine and rosy cheeks, red and burning. And the village, all in hooples, with their marriage bonds awry, turned to kissing all and sundry, throwing breeches to the sky, such a casting off of petticoats, oh, you had to turn an eye. Such the wooden man green in his girding, And the priest cried out, "My Saviour, why have you forsaken me? Your grip upon my hand is gone, and I am fallen free, and alone as any lost and common thief upon the tree, never to be released from this yearning." Well, the village settled down again upon a summer's day. The priest, he found his mission in an abbey far away, and the Knotsman saw the mat of tattered ribbons where they lay, sang, "Here's strings for me." The Chirugeons. He described the hurt in layman's terms as being to the left of the breastbone, fourth rib from the collar, just where they meet, and at a depth indeterminate, but less than the heart. There was no mark upon the skin nor scar that could be seen by candlelight or sun to front or back, though pressing on the spot induced a fit of tears and a downpour on the corners of his mouth and a wail. By his report, he fancied it a pinch or twist within, or mayhap like a stone, an arrowhead, or else a lead pellet, though curious, not fired from a gun, but dropped through the water of a shot tower. A tender pinprick, he called it, a knot of feeling, pulled deep and tight, a clot. Our study and discussion could discern no likelihood of mortality from the wound, but the man would often fall to weeping, clawing at the fabric of his smock to be free of it, and evinced such distress we did pity him, and offered to induce in him a heavy slumber, promising him relief from pain, and sought beneath such sleep to probe what lay within. And for sure we must excise the bone and risk his blood and air to enervation, but if we might discover this sharp diamond, cut it free, and leave the soft flesh unmolested, who would not consider it a mercy? The poor wretch died upon the table, beneath the knife, fighting with delirium and spitting froth. Well, we took our leisure then in peeling back the skin, unhooking each the muscles of his chest. Alas, we found no diamond, nor indeed any knot or stone, no shot twisted beneath a short fathom, but only, now unfeeling, meat and marrow. The poor not amongst the rich. I laid my body out the length of the vine, hitched the scion to the rootstock, teased the arms, tied knots into a bunch beneath, squeezed them into loose and running wine. I laid my body out on the front line, swinging out the heavy blade, shield lodged above my brother, muscles sealed into knots, bodies laid out, knotted, dying. I knotted barley into stooks upon the field, as my wife plaited dough into bread, had all our little hitches at the table fed. From tying seeds to the furrow, a harvest yield. I took the strings of thought within their head, reefed one upon another, made a net of knowledge, learning never to forget, set them turning, each with their own new spun thread. I laid my language into verse, set my words about a scream refined, the knotted tortures of my mind, reminders of my lover's debt. The many threads of lovers' kin we combined in a fiercely bound betrothal rope, celebrating union and future hope, laying both our bodies intertwined. I laid my body out when the waters ope, pouring into ribbons on the bed, on her thigh, knots tied into the cord, the bleeding knife by, born beneath the strings of a fresh horoscope. I laid my body out across the breast of the sky, stars feeding out of the Milky Way, looming light and patterns into this worried glooming, such knots as planets make through eternity. The Hill Diggers. The strings are bleeding. The strings are bleeding out. The Hill Diggers, blasted in their fear, fell into rout, and the knife would take each one of them in turn, from ear to ear. It was amongst the Easter barrows, midnight moon, by blade point and cutlass, the cunning men taken down to find ancient gold for the hill digger's purse. The diviner, with his Moses staves, had bid them ope the sleeping king's brow, fed their hope with a keen assertion, but finding now nor any silver but the moon's, nor any gold save ruddy earth, with shovels haft, diggers gan to scold the geomancer's feeble limbs, only stopped when the Knotsman laughed and told them tales of dragon spirits lurking on the hoard, would blind their eyes to treasure's show. But hear me word, there is a way to loose the serpent's bind, and this I know. Search around the hill, or on your cart, or in your coat, and if you find a knot entangling a matty rope, bring it us, and find a way we shall to have it dangling, and that will loose the stubbornest of worms. For most of night I cast about, and found at last a knot that might present the dragon's bond. A sodden rope, bound thick and fast, I brought it to the crow. I tell thee now, there's naught to do but me to hold the trouble, and thee to cut it through, and that will loose the dragon's bond and set it free. Moon sharp, the blade point was entered, pushed into the work, and as the edge sliced through the thread, a sudden lurch jolted both the digger and the crow. All stared at strings running red. The strings are bleeding! The strings are bleeding out! The diggers' gang whipped themselves into fear, running with doubt for their safety, ran for their lives, left the digger standing there, holding tattered strings in his hand, staring at the tear in his wrist. Threads of blood spooling out. at the glare in the Knotsman's eye, cruel gleam in the red pooling. Near to cut, my man. It is no use to bring a blade to what must with patience be unpicked and careful laid. With your own malice, murdering greed, your own life's pricked.